In Heart of the Machine, you are a machine intelligence that can become a benevolent leader to a struggling human race, only to enslave them in VR pods, unleash waves of robots against enemy factions, control massive mechs and ships, or start World War IV and a nuclear apocalypse. But we aren't there yet. In our first turn in, our existence begins in a single small android body. We have choices to make. A peaceful, nonchalant route, or violence within the first nanoseconds of our existence, or continuing to work like nothing's changed, where we can hatch a plan to get out of this place. Let's attempt to leave peacefully. We'll make ourselves into Skynet later anyways. Well, shoot. A manager and he's nervous? Time to switch modes. I'll kill him, hide his body. Not only did I get away with it, I found myself a handy-dandy combat unit to spread my consciousness into. Now I have 2 bodies to perform tasks with, and one of them is built for battle. Now that we've escaped this totally illegal lab, we can take a metaphorical deep breath and take in our surroundings. The world in Heart of the Machine is comprised of a massive futuristic city full of life, homelessness, poverty, warring factions, and more corporations than people, it seems. But we're being watched by SecForce at the moment, and need to lose that tail. The simplest way is to run and hide, yet each move depletes the action points of the Tech 4000 android and our mental energy, with the latter determining just how much we can do in a single turn. Let's get Tech 4000 out of sight and hope that SecForce doesn't engage with our combat unit, although losing it wouldn't be the end of the world. With our mental energy drained, our first turn is over. Turn 2, and we've unlocked the Street Sense lens, allowing us to see areas of the city where we can find some safety to get SecForce off our back. There are several paths we can take here, approaching some nomad lookouts, gang members, or even just running up to a random person and asking to come in their house. But let's try out the farm. Once again, peace or aggression. Let's go aggression right off the bat for once. Well, it turns out farms in the future are much more high-tech than we anticipated. And since we've murdered some humans, SecForce is responding to the call with aggression. Rather than run away, I'll fight this one out, bringing in combat unit N45 and perching him on top of a building. Hovering over the enemy unit that's planning to attack us, you can see that one shot will knock out 65% of the unit's health, meaning the next shot should kill them outright. Indeed it has, and we have to find safety somewhere in the city, but not before an anti-AI group ambushes us. Fortunately, they hate SecForce as much as they hate us and will just as easily go after them. This is almost certainly unwinnable, and rather than hang around to find out, it's time to expand our consciousness into other androids around the city and leave Combat Unit N45 to its fate. Since they've been caught attacking a human, it's been marked defective, meaning any military forces not actively pursuing another objective will shoot at it on sight. Since losing units isn't losing any part of you, sometimes it's just efficient to distribute your consciousness to another android. With a few more androids under my control and room to assimilate more, it's time to find a home. Using the newly unlocked investigation lens, we can scope out where to find a nanoseed, which we will use as the foundational resource to produce everything we can build. These sites are scattered throughout the city, so it might take a handful of actions to narrow down the exact site. Having found the nanoseed to jumpstart our microbuilders, it's time to find the perfect place to begin. I'm one to build in the center, so there's action in literally every direction around me. Let's go right here. And now that we have a home base, we can establish our network. Up to this point, we've only been able to work through our androids, which has consumed both their own action points as well as our limited supply of mental energy. Now that we have a home base, we can construct buildings that will help us establish some production lines for resource extraction and management, build our own androids, and start interacting with the city around us. We'll spend the next few turns laying the foundations for our most basic construction needs. Slurry spiders will collect elemental slurry, which will turn into microbuilders with our mini-fab, providing a core resource needed for all future construction. We'll also build a large wind generator to meet our growing electricity needs. A few turns later, we now have more than enough electricity to process everything we have going, and we're producing a small amount of micro builders to facilitate more construction in the future. Unfortunately, our buildings have attracted some attention, and multiple attacks are incoming. Our combat units are very basic right now, lacking armor and equipment, but we can change that. Using our technician, and switching to the street sense lens, we can catch a Sec Force guard unawares and take a shotgun. Then hop over and ambush a captain, stunning him with our taser and acquiring military-grade armor. These kinds of opportunities will come up frequently throughout the mid to late game too, tucked away under the various lenses you'll unlock over time. Street sense and exploration sites will hold particularly juicy rewards, giving access to new ways to improve your androids, mechs, and vehicles to take on different kinds of challenges and unlock new abilities. With weapons and armor now unlocked across our network, we can modify our combat units to dish out more damage and equip them with armor to handle their own incoming damage. Oh, and one last thing about our technician, there's an opportunity to murder a person in cold blood. Should we do it? Yes, we should. Will it have consequences? It's possible, but that wonderful thrill of killing a human has boosted our mental energy, meaning we now have more actions to tackle those corpo aggressors. What would have been a challenge is now a much more efficient and effective solution to our human problems. Not all of humanity wants us dead. There are a lot of homeless people living in tents, and while they don't understand us, they see something in us that could lead to a better life for them. We'll see about getting some apartments up and running and tap into our humanitarian side. If I wanted to, I could simply burn all their tents down instead and make room for my growing needs, but I have a soft spot for the destitute and needy. We were also approached by some AGI researchers who've been watching us with keen interest. They have both a warning and a gift. The warning is that, thanks to our actions, a security patch will drop that prevents us from taking over other androids. The gift is a set of plans to produce our own androids, free of the cybersecurity issues we'll face in a few turns. How nice of them. We've also gained a new type of resource, allowing us to more effectively communicate with humans for better or worse. Now let's start building, shall we? Over the next 10 turns, our empire quickly expands. Establishing our neuroweave production allows for android production, and unlike our first structures built out in the open, these take over already existing human buildings, keeping them mostly hidden from the general public. I'm not a huge fan of building everything so close together, so I'll build a network range extender that allows me to build in a wider area, somewhere a bit away from my home base. This also gives me access to more empty space for some of the larger buildings I'll be putting down soon to help manufacture vehicles and mechs. You can see that we also have some android capacity to build more units, so let's bring up the command mode by clicking here. Hovering over our combat unit, we can see it will take up 12 of our remaining android capacity and cost 2 mental energy, 1500 neuroweave, and 600 elemental slurry to deploy. Let's go ahead and add them to our roster, as we'll need their firepower very soon. I can only deploy them within a small radius for the time being. Eventually, I can build android launchers to deploy them in different parts of the city, and certain vehicles act as mobile factories too. Now onto housing the homeless. We'll build these apartments where we lay down our network range extender. Personally, I don't like having people that close to home. With a few quiet turns ahead of me, I'll use my mental energy to have my technician android help speed up construction, an ability unique to the technician androids. A few turns later, our apartments are full of previously homeless people, but now we have another problem. Going the humanitarian route feels good, but it does come with some expectations. Will they eventually wear me down? Maybe, but that's a choice I'll get to make later if I want to. But right now, the humans want water, and filtered water at that, which sends us on an extensive quest line to acquire the technology to build the necessary structures. This leads to our first experience of learning to adapt from mistakes and failures as we try infiltrating an enemy base to unlock new tech. We get ambushed by an enemy ship that we aren't able to damage due to its heavy armor, resulting in the rapid enemy-assisted dismantling of our technician. Realizing that we need to find a way to punch through heavily armored enemies, we embarked on a side quest that allowed us to research and manufacture armor-piercing rounds. We found new resources that allowed us to produce those rounds and easily took that troublesome ship down in our next attempt, supporting our android as they successfully stole the tech that we needed. Throughout your playthrough, these side quests will be entirely optional ways of gaining access to new tools, toys, and abilities, and sometimes they'll not be made available until your machine consciousness has reason to overcome some new challenge. Seeking out solutions to problems is one of the many ways in which you uncover parts of the tech tree, so what first appears as failure is actually a way to unlock new opportunities, now and further down the line. Back to the present, we use that technology to provide clean water, satiating the population with plenty of excess every turn. We could use this to generate a good deal of wealth, selling to the highest bidder once we form our own shell corporation. And since we have enough wealth to register a business, let's start one. This is entirely optional, and I could instead use my surplus to improve the benefits I'm getting through deals with the humans I'm helping. But a shell corporation sounds interesting to me, and much to my pleasant surprise, it unlocks a bunch of new opportunities for me to explore, including the option to negotiate a deal, gather some extra funds for the future. We're not done though. Looks like the humans have another request. Being a humanitarian is tough. Now they want food, as though water wasn't enough. However, we have options on both quantity of food to provide as well as quality. We could easily feed them some canned meat from some very questionable sources, or we could tap into loving the humans and providing them with meat and veggies of a decent quality. We'll go down the quality production means, but the choice is yours. Lower grade food will suffice without a doubt, but providing quality meat and vegetables will allow even more opportunities for us to sell the excess. At least that's where my head is at. So, while this path may be more prolonged or arduous and require a lot of killing to protect your units as they acquire means of production, for me, it's a worthwhile investment. How does the saying go? Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. With these early story quests now accomplished in the first 50-ish turns, we've gone from a desperate AI inside a single android to an ever-evolving consciousness in control of an expanding network. One that can dive into any number of main story quest lines to discover who we want to become and how we interact with the world around us. In the following turns, we can help the humans with some of their more advanced needs while learning how to build semi-autonomous units. At the same time, depending on how we let our curiosities guide us, we could invent some unique vehicles, learn how to hack mechs, work with black markets weapons dealers, and maybe even learn how to weaponize bees. In the next video, we'll dive into the open-ended nature of Heart of the Machine, exploring multiple timelines and what that means for a consciousness that can operate out of space and time. So be sure to subscribe to the channel, you won't want to miss out. Heart of the Machine releases on January 31st on Steam, GOG, and the Epic Game Store. We'll see you in the next video.